To say that Days of the New's history was tumultuous would be an understatement. The band's origins dated back to 1995. Frontman Travis Meeks would grow up in Charlestown, Indiana, which was separated from his future home of Louisville, Kentucky by the Ohio River. Meeks had a musician father, Gary Meeks, who recorded with the Box Tops, which was fronted by Alex Chilton. Gary would bond with his son over their mutual love of Led Zeppelin and Pink Floyd. Despite their shared love of music, Travis had a very unstable upbringing that likely contributed to his volatile behavior. To distract himself from external events in his life, Travis would find comfort in music. In the mid-90s, Travis would meet drummer Taul, as well as bassist Jesse Vest, who he bonded with over their mutual love of bands like Metallica and Pantera. Prior to adding guitarist Todd Whitener, the band was a trio who originally played experimental rock and groove metal, calling themselves Dead Reckoning. Meeks would tell Billboard the original sound was, and I quote, kind of like Metallica's Injustice for All, an aggressive feel but not that nasty. The band would soon move to Louisville, play clubs in the area, and change their sound to more acoustic instruments and add guitarist Todd Whitener. Meeks' vocal style would see comparisons to both Alice in Chains frontman Lane Staley and The Doors' Jim Morrison. It was during this time the band also underwent a name change to Days of the New. Meeks had written Days of the New's first album all by himself, with the frontman admitting to Billboard that his bandmates were a little surprised at the proposal to change the band's sound. That's not to say the recording of the group's first album was easy, because it wasn't. Meeks would recall to Leo Weekly, bringing the band together, Days of the New, was one of the most difficult things, because we're talking. The music's already written, the guitar player didn't know how to play acoustic guitar, I had to teach the drummer how to lay back and understand the acoustic guitar was the main instrument. To make that first album happen, I had to pull my hair out to make these guys focus. I spent all my time trying to get these guys to focus. Days of the New would win a Battle of the Bands competition in Louisville, which brought them to the attention of REM and Nirvana producer Scott Litt, who signed the band. Days of the New was the first band Litt would sign on his label Outpost Recordings, which was distributed by Geffen Records. Litt would also go on to produce their debut album. Their self-titled debut record, also known as Yellow, spawned 3 huge singles including Touch, Peel, and Stand, The Downtown, and Shelf in the Room. The album would go on to sell 1.5 million copies. Keep in mind, these guys were barely out of high school when they first got famous. The band's success brought a lot of internal problems. During the tour to support their debut album, MTV was starting to report that following a canceled show in Florida, the band members appeared physically injured, with some members sporting black eyes and bruises after an apparent brawl with each other. It was during the promotion cycle for the band's first album, the record label and his bandmates would see how unpredictable and volatile Travis Meeks' behavior could be. In the summer of '98, Days of the New got a strange opening slot, touring with both Metallica and Alice in Chains guitarist Jerry Cantrell. Given that the band's sound was drastically different from Metallica, frontman Travis Meeks would criticize the billing, claiming the band should have been touring with Dave Matthews. Ahead of the tour with Metallica, Meeks lashed out against his bandmates, claiming they were holding him back, and went on to say he would be firing them from the group. Label executives would scramble to brush off Meeks' claims in the press, but by the end of 1998, the original lineup was done. It was during this time Meeks was diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome, and following the dissolution of the original lineup, Meeks posted a rambling message on a fan board where he apologized for, and I quote, giving people the impression that Days of the New was a band and promoting it as a band format, going on to say, it wasn't truly a band format. It's my fault for leading you on and setting you up to get attached to the prior members. Meeks would claim that his bandmates left over being jealous of him because he wrote most of the songs and collected a bulk of the publishing money. Meeks' former bandmates would go on to form the band C14 before renaming themselves Tantric. They would have some success with their debut album, which went platinum, but following their brief success, they saw a further decline in record sales with each subsequent release. Meeks, meanwhile, would hold on to the Days of the New name and put out 2 subsequent albums. He would re-emerge in 2014 when it was announced that he was reuniting with the original lineup of Days of the New to do a summer tour and possibly record a new EP that fall. Jesse Vest would put out a statement when the reunion was announced saying, I've experienced plenty of success in other projects, but nothing ever felt like Days did. The band was never easy, but the music was always magical. There will be some very exciting and different things planned for each show. It was a reason to celebrate for longtime fans, but the only problem was that the reunion tour would end in shambles. Even prior to the tour's cancellation in September of 2014, there were warning signs of what was to come. Toilet of Hell would write a review of the band's show on July 18th that took place in Lawrence, Massachusetts. The reviewer would write that the first 2 opening acts played through their sets despite audio problems and never complained about the issues. However, the same couldn't be said for Meeks. The author would write, and I quote, He, referring to Meeks, angrily yelled about not being able to hear himself repeatedly. During a few tracks, he simply stopped singing altogether, walked away from the microphone, and strummed his guitar. When he wandered off, Whitener stepped up to his backing mic and attempted to fill in lyrically. Meeks was incensed and at one point shouting towards the sound guy, "This is how you're going to treat the lead singer of Days of the New? Real effing nice, man," over the mic for everybody to hear. At least 5 or 6 times he stormed off the mic, stomped to the side of the stage, and berated unseen people off stage, gesturing wildly. On one of those occasions, he left the stage entirely and retreated to an area of the pub that was blocked off from the crowd by security and sat there for 5 minutes. The reviewer would go on to write that some in the crowd yelled at him to just shut up and play. The wheels would come off the reunion during a show in Missouri when the band abruptly ended their set due to Meeks being too inebriated to play. According to reports, the band's bassist Jesse Vest abruptly grabbed the microphone and told the crowd that it would be the band's last show of the reunion. Following the incident, Meeks' bandmates released several statements to the fans claiming, "There are many things to address here and we don't want to keep feeding the negativity. We do want to let it be clear that Travis was in no way pressured into this reunion. In fact, it was very much the other way around. Travis literally begged us to do this reunion tour on the phone, in text, and in person, and he had burned so many bridges in his career that no one would hire him to do a show anymore for the fear that he would not show up. He knew that the original lineup would lend credibility to the project and would help him rebuild his career. Days of the New would put out an official statement claiming the reunion was done and that Meeks would hold on to the name. A month later, the frontman would be arrested for failing to show up for a court-ordered date on charges relating to possession of drug paraphernalia. In the years that followed, Meeks disappeared from the public spotlight with news of a few arrests and a single performance in 2018 in Madison, Indiana. In August of 2020, Meeks was arrested for being drunk in public in Arizona. And earlier this year, reports surfaced of unreleased material or possibly older bootleg material showing up on streaming platforms without any promotion, with some debating whether it's part of the band's long-awaited 4th album. Even this year, a new photo of Travis Meeks emerged of him looking pretty healthy. That does it for today's video, guys. Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit the like button and subscribe, and we'll see you again in Rock and Roll True Stories. Take care.